About me.
Welcome, everybody, to the Three Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and thank you for joining us in this afternoon broadcast. And with me today is James Leffler. James, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, Dave. Thanks to be back and doing a video thing. So this will be fun.
Yeah, this is a little interesting. It's much different doing it this way. It's kind of easier when you're just sitting, no camera, no internet, and just kind of chatting, with the microphones.
Yeah, I think that might be. It kind of leads it to more a casual atmosphere. So this seems more professional. So kind of good and bad.
Yeah. Plus, you're at work, so you got to watch. Wait, no, you were at work last time too.
Yep.
Always professional, James Leffler.
Always having a cool job, James Leffler.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, James, I think we can tell by the banner over your shoulder, but it's been a while since you've been on the podcast. So why don't you give the audience a little bit of background on you and what you kind of do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm James. I do quality control at JP. So I've been here 3.5 years now. I can count on one hand the number of days it's felt like work. I just get to show up and play with guns all day and talk with my buddies and talk about shooting all day, and they pay me. So it's pretty awesome.
It's pretty great. And James, throw out your handle, your Instagram handle. It's Car Racer. I don't remember. Is there numbers on the end of it?
Yeah, so it's an old username. So Car Racer 36, it's an account I've used for forever. And my name was taken by some other chowder, so I just ran that one. I was a little Instagram game, so.
Yeah, I was too. And when I got into the Instagram game, there was like no sort of form of Dave Hartman that was available. So mine ended up being kind of goofy as well. But the reason I mention it is you have one of the cooler job place Instagram accounts out there, right? And obviously you're in this space, so you're into like stuff that I'm into. So it's kind of cool. Like every morning you have like a new photo of something cool that you're either inspecting or working on at JP Rifles, and so it's kind of like the behind the scenes account. It's fun to hang out to watch you.
Yeah, so kind of my thought process behind what I do on the account is there's always something new in the shop. The nice part about JP being a semi-custom shop is that there's always some new, and especially with how many parts we have, there's always some customer coming up with some new, unique, very configuration that is really something different that you haven't seen in a while or never seen before. And so I always wanted to share that. So every day I try and make, during the work week, is trying to make at least one post a day, just showcasing something different and seeing all the different options that customers come up with. And we've talked about this on my last podcast, but every time we get done with a rifle, a lot of times for something unique and fun and interesting that has really kind of come together, it'll get passed around the shop and everybody will kind of want to check it out and see what it, and then, kick the wheels going in your own mind, and it'll be something that inevitably comes like, well, I'm going to have to build one of these. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse to have this job. Yeah. But then also you get to handle guns every day. And some of them 3 rifles I own are because of guns that I've handled in the shop.
Yeah, it's like working in a puppy shelter, like I want to take them all home with me.
It is a good time. I do enjoy that aspect of the job, and it is fun to share it and see all the different things that customers, and then what people find appealing, and rifles that I think are not fit for the date of light, and that someone is actually paying money for it, and that other people say that's their favorite rifle ever. So it's kind of interesting seeing the different viewpoints, and I enjoy sharing that. So Car Racer 36 on Instagram.
Car Racer 36 on Instagram. One of my favorite things that you've done is you're pretty honest about saying like, hey, look, I did not think that this combination was going to turn out well. When I saw it on the build sheet, I was like, but seeing it built together, it actually looks pretty good. And there are some of them, like you're right. Like when you take like the individual parts, like if you go through like the JP rifle builder, like I would never have built it that way. But then you see someone's vision put into like an actual rifle sitting there on the table, and I don't know, do you just take them with your phone? Photos look pretty good, but like a lot of them like came out really well.
Yeah, so that's kind of the sum is greater than the parts, and that's kind of interesting, and exactly what you say, where if you were to tell somebody, like, list out all the things that were in it, and then you actually, like, people will be like, no, I don't want that, not be interested, and then you see the final product and it really, really changes your perspective. You're like, Hey, and so like I say, that's also plays into some of the rifles that I have are certain combinations of parts that I just didn't want, and then all of a sudden now I want those and become desirable, and now I own those.
Nice. Yeah, and so we've got people joining us in the chat on the YouTubes here, and Jeremy Krolak says his daily picks of rifles make me drool. One day I will have a JP.
I said the same thing before I started here, so and then I made it a reality, and then I got to see where my rifle was made, so pretty cool, and I got to meet the guy who built it.
Oh, cool. That's really cool. All right, man. Well, so we've got a really cool topic to chat about here. So let's be honest, 3-gun is expensive, right? We've got 3 times the guns, 3 times the gear, 3 times the ammo, and as 3-gunners, generally we demand high round counts from matches we go to, whether that's club match or major match. We just kind of expect more than we normally would at USPSA. Pistol matches, they're single gun, and then they actually have like round count restrictions on stages. So, excuse me. You and I, we chat quite a bit on Instagram, which is something I, all after work hours, not during work hours. He's definitely working during work, but but it's something I enjoy because you give like a lot of really intelligent feedback from topics on the show that I normally either it's an aspect that I missed or something that was kind of left unsaid. And so I appreciate your feedback on that. But one of the things you said was like, dude, we should talk about shooting on the cheap because this is not a cheap game.
So one of the things that I like, and I think one of the roles that same things that we have in common is trying to spread the sport. And a lot of the barriers to introduction to the sport is cost. The gear outlay at the front, everybody thinks you have to own this massive amount of gear in order to try it. And then actually getting into a match, then you have 3 times the round count. Now you're not talking pistol ammo, which for 3-gunners is the cheap part. The rifle and shotgun becomes a lot more cost and outlay. So trying to get ways to lower the barrier for entry for people to just come out and try it. Because once they try it, then they're hooked. You and I both know that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, whatever we can do to lower the barriers to entry. And I think one of the ways to do that is to share some of the cost saving measures. Now, I work at JP, so people don't normally associate that with cost savings. But for me, and coming from somebody, I worked at a family business prior to working at JP. And as the son of a company owner, I was where the fat got cut for salary. So I didn't make a lot of money. And I got into 3-gun when I still worked there. And so I just want to share some of the things that I've found and that have worked well for me in order to be cost effective and make my shooting budget go much further.
And so I'll be honest, I'm here to learn because I'm almost positive that I've been doing it the wrong way, and there's a lot of ways that I can do better on shooting economically, and but I do have some ways and things that I've done in the past as well that I'm going to go ahead and toss in here too. But yeah, let's where do you want to start this conversation? Do you want to start in gear? Do you want to start in matches?
I think we can start in gear. That's typically where people become most focused and they see that as a limiting factor. And I don't think it needs to be. And I think we can limit some of those misconceptions related to that. Now, at the outlay, I'm going to say people get associated with budget. It's not shooting cheap guns. It's stretching your dollar. So there's a little bit more to it than that. And for me, I shoot very nice gear. I shoot a JP rifle CTR02. I shoot a Benelli M2, and I shoot an STI 2011. So I shoot very nice gear. But I'm able to purchase and own that nice gear because I'm able to cut corners elsewhere and use those budget that I have saved to buy once, cry once. So keep that in mind with what we're talking about here. It's not just shooting on the cheap. It's trying to spend your budget wisely and stretch it and get the most value out of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And so in the chat here, Carl Volt, as you were saying that, he commented 3-gun on a budget, invites JP, what's next? Racing on a budget with a Ferrari salesman, which is hilarious. But we're gonna get into that as well. And as far as that buy once, cry once mentality, like I definitely have been the buy 4 times, cry 6 times guy, So I can relate to the other side of that. So when you talk about the buy once, cry once mentality, kind of expand on that a little bit, because on the surface you are shooting what people would consider like, oh, someday I'll own those guns type of firearms.
Correct. And the other part of it too is that and the other tougher part is that you and I both started in this game and been in this game for over 5 years individually. And I didn't accumulate new shooters would come up to me and see all my gear and this whole mess of stuff coming out. I don't need to explain to you how much stuff we have. And they will assume I bought it in the last year. And that's not the case. I've pieced together parts here and there, and being able to have all the parts now, but I didn't start there. So knowing, I started shooting with the Stoker M3000. It was a great shotgun, and I didn't know at the time if I was going to be in 3-gun for a long time. I had been shooting USPSA. There you go. I wasn't sure if that was something that I was going to want to stick with. So I just wanted to try something to get me interested, and then if I really enjoyed it and wanted to stick with it, then I could figure it out later. But I ran that shotgun for 2 years. I shot it in 2 majors. The Nordic Shotgun Championship, I shot that gun. It ran like a champ. So that's the other part, trying to that's the other part I want to do here, is kind of be honest with what your goals are and what gear do you really need. Do I need a Atlas 2011? No. Do I want one? Heck yeah, I do.
I want 2 of them.
Yeah, so
one for each hand.
I was kind of vague on what I said there. I shoot a Hawk STI. So that was a model they came out with last year that was really bare bones. It didn't have a mag well. It didn't have a double-sided safety. It was a 9mm 2011. That's it, which is all I needed. I was coming off a Glock 34, which, to the other part there, is that you can get really far with a plastic fantastic pistol. Salesman here, Andre, he shoots all the multi-gun majors like I do, and he stomps me with the Glock 34.
Yeah, he's a fantastic pistol shooter.
A very good shooter. He competes in USPSA on a high level. He will place at majors as an M-class shooter. I mean, he can do it, and he's all doing it with a plastic gun that the first thing 3-gunners want to do is ditch that. So being conscious of that and knowing that you don't really need the top level gear to get there. But I do have the top level gear, and that's because I'm able to stretch those dollars over the course of years. And having that long-term goal of, I did ultimately, like Maxwell has said before, you've had him on here before, it's not if, it's when you get the 2011, if you're going to be serious about 3-gun. And I knew that I was going to be there as well. And I shot for the majority of my career for 4 years, a 9mm Glock 34. And I knew that eventually I would want to upgrade there. And I made conscious budget decisions about what I was going to spend to get there and to make that happen. And now I do.
So I like your philosophy there. But one of the things that you mentioned that I think stands out and that maybe a lot of people don't think about is like, what are your goals in 3-gun?
Yes.
And realistic goals, right? So if you're me and you're starting in the game right now, like I'm 39, and like, am I going to be a top 3-gunner going out there with no sort of experience whatsoever? Probably not. But in 5 years, I could have the experience and the practice the practice repetitions to actually compete. So am I going to go and shoot 13 major matches a year at $1,000+ a pop, as far as like travel and match fees and stuff like that goes, and ammo, and then buy $3,000 rifle, $3,000 pistol, $3,000 shotgun? Like that's a lot to invest that first year. Or am I going to learn the game with maybe the carry pistol I have, a Glock 19, and the AR-15 I bought in the last panic, and a pump shotgun? Like those are, and then can I shoot that for 2 years or a year, and then upgrade smartly based on that, or do I just have $30,000 lying around to go and burn in my first year in 3-gun? So those are like, they're competing objectives, and I guess you have to start by defining what your objective in this sport is. And if your objective in this sport is to like quit your job and shoot full time, completely reevaluate your objectives in this sport.
For me, I approach it as a hobby, but I approach it the same way. From you, I have a racing background. So I kind of got a little bit where you can replace. For me, it's you got time or money, and I had a lot of time. So I was able to take that Stoker, and I knew it wasn't an M2, but I knew if I took some of my mechanical background, was able to polish the magazine, to cut my own loading port, do a lot of the things myself, I could replace that money with time and a little bit of elbow grease and make that happen. So I think and like you say, being honest about your first match, you're not going to win. And there's a lot of low hanging fruit, and learning how to triage both on the clock and off the clock, and figuring out where you're bleeding from the most and staunching those wounds before you start applying band-aids elsewhere, and making sure that you're cutting off the arterial flow is more important. So knowing that, hey, my shotgun didn't run this last match, I need to shore that up. Or I have a Glock, it's 9mm, I can stick bigger mags in it. It's not going to have as long of a barrel, but it will do what I need it to do. Even for my 2011, I shot Blue Ridge Mountain, and I shot it with stock 2011 base pads, 20-round magazines. Some guys are like, oh, I wouldn't take a 2011 to a match. I need to have the Terran Tactical base pads and the Graham's Guts so I get 23 rounds reloadable. Well, no, you don't. There was a few times, there was one stage where I did a standing reload where having 2 extra rounds would have been beneficial in the entire match. So you can really get away with shooting what people view as substandard gear that's perfectly fine. And for me, especially there, coming back to it, knowing your limitations, I know that having a couple extra rounds in the magazine isn't going to make it or break it. And if I would have just said, instead of playing video games one night, I would have actually dry fired, that would have helped out my finish more than going and spending money and actually going through and spending product to get better finishes in my mind. So resisting the urge to, I work with Brian Payne. His son is Tyler Payne, and one of his mantras is resist the shiny. Don't go chasing new gear and have to reset some of your practice time and spend time and effort trying to figure out how this works, how to attach it to your gun. What if you just taken that time and dry fired instead? You probably would have been ahead of the game, and you would have had that money that instead of buying this doodad and hooking it up to your gun where really wasn't a net performance benefit, you could have gone and shot another match. And trying to make those kind of decisions and seeing it from that perspective is kind of really what I'm advocating here and really what I'm trying to share. So to that end, some of the things that I've done, started out with basic gear. I would advocate with the shotgun, like the Stoker, and or buying a used gun, or the other benefit, and this is the other part too that a lot of people find difficult, being humble enough to borrow gear. It's very difficult. And even me, I'm still hesitant to do so, even though I know everybody. And I know for a fact that 3-gunners are some of the most generous people and will literally throw gear at you multiple times in order to borrow you things. It's still humbling and tough to say, hey, can I help me out here? My shotgun doesn't run and I want to shoot this next match, but I'm not going to be able to do it unless I borrow a shotgun. You'll have 20 people saying yes, but ginning up the courage can be tough to say, hey, can I borrow this, or can I get help? I mean, we're all type A guys, and I don't need help from anybody, but sometimes you have to realize that maybe you do, and being able to be honest. And if you forego buying a shotgun and just tag team it on your buddy and buy him dinner after the match, which is $30, can be more beneficial, and you can get to more matches and get that match experience on the clock. And then you find the guy and you shoot his M2 and you go, man, that gun doesn't fit me. I don't like it. It does this, this, and this that I don't like. Maybe I'll start looking at a 1301 or a A5 or a Dissident Breda. You could do a lot of different things there. So that's the other part, is trying to humble yourself and ask for help can be beneficial, and you can really cut costs that way. For me, one of the things that I did when I first got started, I didn't have shotgun carriers. And luckily I came in right after dual loading became a thing. So I didn't do the dumb thing and buy the old Weekend 4 candies, and then all of a sudden I have to throw all that away and buy brand new quad loading gear.
I did that.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Dave. This is how I know you're old.
Yeah.
But it is also a rite of passage. Like, I loaded Weekend on the clock when that was the deal.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like sit around, boys. Let me tell you how we used to load.
We have really strong thumbs, and it wasn't because you're paying money. So being humble and asking for gear. For the first 6 months that I shot 3-gun, I didn't own any shotgun caddies, and I used tech locks on my belt because that's what my USPSA buddies who also shot 3-gun and talked me into it were using. So we would swap around caddies. There was 3 of us who used the same caddies. So that could be some way that you can also stretch your money further. But it can be tough to do and tough to see that perspective and tough to ask for help. And you feel obligated, but I'm sure looking back on it, I don't remember the times that I've loaned out gear, and I don't even think about it. It's just something that you do, and then you forget about it. And you feel so bad, like, oh, I owe that guy back, and he's helped me out a bunch of times. And trying to think about it from that perspective and trying to be humble can be difficult, but is worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually done that myself where I've went and shot like a club match or a match, and I've had problems with a shotgun or just fill in the blank on the equipment here, and someone's trying to help me, and I'm like, no, I think I got it, and then just struggling through that rest of that match when it's like, just take the damn help, Dave. Like, swallow your pride and let yourself be helped, and then you can actually shoot an enjoyable match. But I would totally agree. The other thing I would say, like when you're talking about like shooting like a friend's M2 or a friend's A5 or 1301 or whatever it is, find that guy at the range that has an M3000 and is getting ready to upgrade to an M2, because you can pick those things up for cheap, and it's probably already got a tube on it, probably already has sights on it, probably already has a match saver.
And the nice part too is that a lot of the gear that we use really doesn't wear out. You're not going to wear out a Glock. You're not going to wear out an M2. I mean, Kurt Miller has, but he's also put a couple 100,000 rounds.
Yeah.
So that's a different. I mean, the local guy, even the hot shoe, putting 10,000 through it, that's just broken in. So you can really get a lot of longevity from used firearms, and again, stretch that dollar. Luckily through me, I've able to curtail a friendship with local gun store Arms and Arms, and I got good guy pricing through them for my STI. But my Glock I bought used and was able to use that, and I ran that gun in production and USPSA for a long time. So that's the other part too. For me, a lot of ways I'm able to stretch the dollar further is practice. I mean, you don't get better unless you practice, and live fire practice and allocating rounds and choosing the decision. A lot of people who are listening are going to choose the decision between practice or shooting a match. And I would rather shoot the match and have fun, even though I know practice is probably what I need. And allocating funds for practice can become difficult and tough to justify, even though you know you might need it. So the other part that really a strong culture up here in Minnesota with winter is a dry fire culture. The culture related around dry fire and putting drills and really reinforcing the positive benefits that you can get for very little time investment is massive with dry fire. And the only thing that involves is time and effort.
Yeah, dry fire is free. It's interesting. So you talk about the dry fire culture in the Great White North, and it's true. And it's kind of a hard joke here in Texas, like, oh yeah, we don't dry fire, we just shoot year round. And I think, like, well, maybe we should. Maybe if we dry fired a little bit, we could save a little money and also be better.
So, seeing the increased benefits you get from gun manipulation, if you think about the people who are around here and who do practice that dry fire culture, Josh Fralick, Jake Watola, John Wydell, and you see their gun manipulations coming out of John Wydell from Zombies in the Heartland. As he came out and long range stage he posted was shooting a rifle. He had that gun charged up and on his shoulder in no time at all. And that's not coming from live fire practice at the range. That's coming from dry fire and getting those repetitions where the manipulation of the gun becomes secondary. That's the other part too, is that when you are coming back to triage, when you are practicing your schedule, a lot of guys are trying to worry about the shooting and how important that is. And I kind of divide my practice up into two segments. You have the bang, and then you have everything else except the bang. And the bang is a very small portion, and that seems to be what the sexy part and what people would like to concentrate on practice the most, when in reality, this part over here becomes a huge aspect, and you can get seconds where here you're working on tenths. You're like, oh, I dropped 2/10 off my split or 2/1000 off my split. And it's really not that. When you add it up over a match, it can kind of make a big difference. But like, I worked on gun transition and I cut a second off. If I'm faster on my gun transition, so to a stage, 5 stages, I've got 10 seconds on you, I can shoot really slow and still beat you when you cut off 1/10 of a second on every shot, and now you've only gained 2 seconds throughout the match. I'm going to beat you every time because I'm better at this low-hanging fruit over here. And so working on that in your practice and being honest and being smart. Again, it's not that you are going to be judicious and just like go crazy and try and just do one thing and kind of strong arm it into working and brute force it. Being smart and trying to be tactical about where you apply your time and effort and money can be beneficial and can really change and make dramatic improvements in how you shoot and your performance at matches.
Yeah, the the not going bang portions that you're talking about, like if you don't have a lot of money, like James Robinson just commented here, with a toddler and a newborn, dry fire is sometimes the only practice I have time for. That's totally cool, man. The other thing you can do is exercise and run, and do movement drills and chain and direction transitions when you're moving, and practice drop steps in your backyard, playing with your dog and things like that. Like those are value added for those not going bang parts that you're talking about. And if you can't get out to the range, you can dry fire.
So one of the things that I picked up from this show is a comment that you had from an interview with James Gill, where he said he practiced movement and manipulation or movement all day. So when I'm in the office and you get into a hallway and you're kind of doing that tango, I will drop step out of it and scoot to the side and try and work on quick foot movement and getting out of that person's way and trying to be fast about that and just kind of try and it seems silly because I'm trying to move fast and you can hear my feet squeak and the shoes and everything go, but it's trying to emphasize that in all day, every day.
Yeah, and you really can do it everywhere. Like before we got going on the show here, I was just playing with a dog, and you know the dude loves to follow me everywhere. So I kind of joke around with him sometimes and try to like make little patterns through the furniture and stuff. But that's all helping you maneuver around a stage too, if you treat it that way. Or you could just shuffle around like most people in their daily lives do. So, but yeah, if three gun is or practical shooting is something that is always on your mind and you can't stop thinking about it, like then treat it that way and use those opportunities like James is talking about.
One of the other things that I've found that can be beneficial too is leading back to incorporating this into your, like for me, it's a lifestyle at this point. I live, breathe all of this stuff. I'm thinking about shooting all the time, watching shooting videos all the time on Instagram. So the other part that you can extend to benefit your shooting in your everyday life, brown bagging it for lunch. That seems like an interesting idea, but if you go through and it's like, oh, I go out for lunch every day with your buddies, and that's just something we do, and you got your spots, and you get into that corporate deal, like on Tuesdays we go here, Wednesdays we go here, and Thursdays we go here, and this is how it works. If you were to take your lunch and make it at home and just eat a sandwich, or even you can make a pretty good meal on the cheap and bring it into lunch and eat it there instead of that. If you save $8 every day, it's a box of ammo, it's a box of 9mm. I save
Yeah.
boxes, that's a match. I mean, you can start chipping away and start thinking towards the big picture and setting goals and make little small steps progressively as you get there. And when you look back, you've made it a long ways. And now the justification to buying the STI becomes a lot different because you have all this saved up. And then it's just the impulse purchase to get you over the line and make that extra $200 spend to kind of get you there a little faster.
Yeah, that's a really big thing. And years ago, I used that to get out of credit card debt when I got out of college. I was one of those idiots that just signed up for what they had on the quad there. And it's amazing what an impact brown bagging it can make. And if you're like a single guy and you're dating, then make her dinner. If you and your wife normally go out 5 nights a week, make it 1 night a week. Make it date night or something like that, and then take your morning coffee with you. And like, I hate to be like restrictive on those places, but if it's truly that important to you, then you can do it. And like James was talking about, like freaking lunch, is, if you go to like a normal place, is like $14 or something like that. If you meal plan in your crock pot, or just make extra Sunday night dinner or something like that, and then take that Monday and Tuesday, that's much cheaper. I've done the math in the past. It's been a while, but you can get it down to like $3 a meal or something. And bonus, James, you're eating better. You're going to lose weight. You're going to be more energized for your work day, and you'll still have energy when you get home for your dry fire, and you're going to perform better on the range on the weekends.
Yeah, it's just making simple changes like that. It's not coming back to being frugal or doing it on the cheap. It's being smart and tactical and really getting the value out of your dollar for three gun. So that's things that I try and advocate, where if you just make simple changes like that over the course of 5 years, like you've been in this game for a while, you can start making drastic changes. And then the idea of shooting a CTR becomes a lot easier and becomes a lot more palatable to do that. So the other part too is avoid gear rabbit holes. So that's the other part too, is really before you're going to make that outlay and get that, chase that new gear, because sometimes there are advantageous things where quad loading, if you weren't doing that and you were resisting chasing that, you would have been behind the times. So there are things that you need to do in our advancements where chasing that gear does matter. But you really need to go through and do the math and make sure that stuff works. For me, over the winter, it was reloading. So that, again, being tactical about how I do it, reloading becomes a lot cheaper. And people say, oh, I can shoot for the same, but I shoot a lot more. But that time investment is what they forget. And what if I was able to use that time spent reloading in dry fire instead? And now with ammo prices coming down, my reloads were really not that different from 9mm factory ammo. And so I did the math this winter and I crunched the numbers, and I haven't pulled the press or the handle on my press at all this year. And I've switched to shooting factory ammo. Now, I'm not shooting my gamer powder puff loads, shooting 135 grain bullets. I'm shooting factory 115. But, again, being honest about my capabilities, is that going to make a difference between for match positions? No, I could spend 10 minutes in dry fire and I easily gain that back, and it wouldn't make a difference in my setback for how I did going from minor power factor ammo to factory ammo.
Right.
The time I was able to get back, I can use elsewhere and become more efficient and make better gains in what I was doing.
I have a question for you, James, and this is kind of like a small little rabbit trail, so let's try not to get too off track because I like where your head's at. But when you're talking reloading ammo versus factory ammo, now in PCC, does that matter at all? I know you shoot a lot of PCC, but
So
I don't see it being that in my personal experience shooting powder puff loads and shooting full power like Fiocchi, which is known to be hot. I don't see a big difference in PCC. Do you?
I will correct you. I have noticed that. So
Okay.
for me, and the other part is that I'm particularly sensitive to this because it's a question that we get quite a bit. People know with their JP rifles, they can tinker with them, they can mess with them, and they are familiar with how those systems work, and they want to get in there and mess with them. Now, in a PCC, it's a blowback operated system in the case of the GMR, and the only thing keeping the bolt in battery and keeping that chamber closed while the gun is going off is mass in the system. And people want to cut mass to try and increase cyclic rate and change how the gun feels, because the first thing for me, my GMR kicks way more than my CTR because there's a lot more mass going back and forth, and it's both the recoil coming back and the recoil going forward. So the first thing guys want to do when they want to tune the gun is take that mass out of the system. The problem is in a blowback system that becomes very dangerous, and you get below a certain point, then you reach a safety factor and you start racing out of battery discharges.
Right.
In my opinion, the only way to safely tune a gun in a PCC blowback is via the ammo. So for me, I was under the impression when I first started shooting PCC and I was still shooting minor production USPSA, and I wasn't sure which one I was going to want to shoot, and I wanted to have the option to shoot both. And I only wanted to pull the handle and not deal with two types of ammo, PCC ammo and then production ammo. So I wanted to have some commonality. And so I shot my reloads, and then I made some turn down ammo and see what that did just for fun and testing. And it made a massive difference. And so what I did and then I started learning that I really like PCC a lot much more over production, is I converted all my ammo over to that lower power factor. And it went from 135 power factor to 130. And it doesn't seem like a big difference, but it really made a big performance difference for the GMR. And so I saw less dot movement, there was less felt recoil. It really changed a lot of things for me. Now, the benefit is let me sell a little bit here, is with the new short stroke system, we've added more mass back into the system. So now you have the opportunity to tune the gun a lot more, and the headspace or your margin for error before you reach that area where you could get into an out of battery discharge becomes a lot more. There's a lot more headroom for tuning, and you can change a lot of things. And so that's one of the benefits. And so when I switched to that, and realistically coming from the old 4-weight SCS to the new short stroke system and coming from reloads, I thought the changes kind of offset themselves and they're about the same. So I haven't really noticed a performance decrease for me. And I get the benefits of now I can just stay and dry fire. And for me, the number one performance things, I'll give a PCC tip here, is that same as having a firm grip on your pistol will help with follow-up shots. Having the PCC stock tight to your shoulder will really help with follow-up shots and really will help mitigate dot movement. So instead of pulling the handle and getting the benefits of downloaded minor power factor ammo, I can just concentrate on dry fire and really work on moving in and out of positions and coming back up and getting a firm grip on my shoulder, and I don't notice the difference. And I'm not loading at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. at night before a match to go shoot the next day.
All right. Well, that's okay. So Thank you for explaining that. That's something I did not know about, and maybe I need to look into what I'm doing here. But anyway, um, as far as ammunition goes, one of the things that you mentioned to me recently is that you make your ammo purchases for the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I try and save up over the winter because I'm not shooting matches, and all of my funds just kind of sit and pool up when I kind of match season winds down, and I still allocate that budget towards shooting. I just don't spend it, and so then it kind of pools up for a little bit, and then I can use that to leverage on. Once you reach certain thresholds, you get free shipping from places, so I can cut shipping charges from my ammo, which helps reduce cost per round. Or I can wait for sales around end of the year, so New Year's or Black Friday, and I can pounce and get sales. Or with federal, you can get rebates. So my current, I'm shooting XM 193 Lake City brass case federal, good ammo, and I'm paying 23 cents a round.
Yeah, it's insane right now for ammo. Like I bought a bunch at 28 cents, and I was going to do the 5 cents per round rebate thing. Unfortunately, all my stuff got hung up in Houston, and I haven't seen it. But I was doing the same thing, and I couldn't believe it. Like 23 cents a round.
Yeah,
Like it was
crazy
more expensive than that in like 2008 when I started shooting.
for steel case.
Yes, yeah,
So,
crazy.
and then I try and kind of figure out now that this is harder for newer shooters because you don't really know. But for me, I kind of have a general idea of what my round count is going to be for each gun, and I'm able to buy in bulk and leverage some of those things. But the other part is you can pool in with a buddy. You are all both going to probably buy a bunch of ammo, and you know what's going to happen. So being able to pool your money together and buy in on bulk deals and try and cut those costs, cut shipping costs. We've organized group buys for powder here to cut for hazmats when we were reloading.
Oh yeah.
Get through on and avoid that $35 cost. Well, now instead of one guy paying it, what if five guys are paying it? Then your costs come down, and just making small changes like that and being smart, again, being tactical about how you're going to spend that money. I know I'm going to shoot this much ammo a year. So instead of going to I don't have to go and deal and make all these individual purchases. I can buy it all at once. Then it's just in my house. I get the warm, fuzzy feeling of looking at a stack of ammo like this and saying, I'm going to shoot it next year. That's kind of nice. And then you get some other benefits out of it too.
Yeah, as far as powder goes, at my old range, when I worked at Lockheed Martin, they did group buy on powder, and I want to say that they got like 120 dudes in on it, and as well as a group buy on Montana Gold bullets when back when they were in business, and they would have that stuff shipped to like one dude's loading dock, and then everyone would just show up at his place, or they trucked it to the range. I can't even remember, but they would have like pallets of freaking bullets and pallets of powder, and then they saved on all that shipping and they saved on all those charges. Now, granted, you got to go to, drive an hour and a half away or whatever to go get your stuff, but it's a lot of times like you said, less than the paying the hazmat plus shipping, and then doing it in small batches. You get the expense of paying a higher round count. Like a lot of times you can negotiate like a pallet deal or something. Just you really gotta find those individuals like you that are super motivated and that are willing to buy all their ammo at one time, like James is.
Yeah. So, and the other part too is like when I went and bought that ammo, I didn't buy cheap powder. I bought Bitavuri, which is expensive, but I find benefits in it that it was cleaner, so I don't have to clean my guns, and I could spend more time practicing. And that I thought the recoil impulse was slightly better than tight group, and it's not as smoky. So there are performance benefits to it. So being able, again, it's not being cheap, it's being tactical and making the best value out of my dollar. So I was able to reap the benefits of high end parts on kind of a lower end budget and really trying to live, champagne and lobster on a pizza and beer budget.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's another really good point.
So just trying to, like, again, being tactical about that stuff. And the other part too, coming back to gear, I shoot a JP CTR02. That's the highest, that's the best of the best on the range. It's right up there with any of the guns out there. But the optic that I'm running on it is not a Razor like people would expect. I ran a 1-4 Vortex Viper on that previously, and then with the new 1-6 Viper, I've upgraded to that. Around here, Minnesota, we're limited to 200 yards for ranges. I do travel to some majors, but I don't travel. I travel to 1 or 2 majors a year. So again, being honest, do I want a Razor? Yes. Would a Razor be better? Absolutely. Do I need a Razor? No, I don't. I'm able to make all the hits that I need. I'm able to do everything I need well enough with that Viper 1-6. Now, I'm able to, for half the cost, and I get more than half the value of a razor for half the cost, and I'm able to spend those dollars elsewhere judiciously. And so I can take that savings and use it and apply it towards that STI pistol and upgrade my Glock 34 to a 2011, which is a big jump and did make a huge difference. And so in there, I was able to cut out practice time associated with that Glock. And as much as I love dry firing PCC, I hated dry firing pistol. I don't know why. And so I was able to take that time and spend it elsewhere where I enjoyed it. So I'm having more fun, enjoying things, and I look forward to dry fire, but I still get the same performance that I would have had dry firing the Glock. And I'm able to perform just as well with my rifle. I went down to Blue Ridge again last year, and I was able to clean Thunder Valley. And that's with what people would consider a budget-minded optic, but it was perfectly acceptable for what I need.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll second that on the Viper. The Gen 2 Viper is like a ridiculous scope. When I got that guy, I think I shot it for like a year and a half, maybe a little bit more. Like I was super pumped with that because it was like the best scope I'd ever had on my rifle. And then when I got the Razor, I was kind of conflicted because like you, like this does everything I need to do. I don't need to make an upgrade or anything. So I got the Razor. The Razor is like freaking phenomenal, right? But yeah, I mean it's so sweet. But I did not get rid of that Gen 2 Viper. It went on my I guess I call it my truck gun, and I still shoot that thing. I still shoot it out to 500 yards, and it's still a freaking great scope. So I'll second that. And then the other thing I'll second, Pat Kelly said this one time when we were talking about gear and upgrading gear and stuff. And he's like, oh yeah, stick with the gear you have unless it makes you shoot more, unless it makes you want to shoot more. And I will say that since I picked up a 2011 pistol, I want to pick it up more every day. Right. So it's not like my Glock, which, again, Glocks are fantastic. They work every time and they can get you really far, but they're just Glocks. They're not sexy or anything. Like that 2011 pistol, for some reason, I want to pick that thing up all the time. Like I'm constantly walking around the house with it, shooting my light switches, not really dry fire, changing mags and stuff. Like I like dry firing that thing. I like playing with that thing. Like it's pretty slick. So if that drives you to practice more, whether it's live fire or dry fire, maybe it's a good move.
So we kind of come back to that buy once, cry once mentality, is that if you are able to, how many times does that buy once, cry once get preached? And don't, when people are like, oh, I want to try a new 3-gun, I want to get you. And the first thing people say is like, don't buy gear because you don't know what you need. So being able to run that Glock 34 and run it for as long as you can, you will gain the wisdom to know what to buy once and cry once before you get into it. Because if you're getting into the game, you might not know, like, hey, I want a 6-inch 2011 or I want a 5-inch 2011. And you get all these options that you get with all these custom builds out there. You might not know, like, I don't know the difference. Like when I first was thinking about a 2011, I shot a DVC, I shot kind of an Edge, and I shot an Atlas. I couldn't tell the difference between either three of them. I really couldn't.
Yeah.
And I know there is a difference between them now, having shot a 2011 for a while. But at the time, they all seemed super nice, and I really couldn't tell. I didn't have the wisdom to know the difference. So for me, it was not buying anything because I know there's a difference in my mind, and I know from talking to those guys that there is a difference, but I couldn't discern that difference. So I decided that I am not ready to buy a 2011, so I waited, and I ran my Glock for longer.
Good for you, man. Like so you and I talked for months and months about 2011s because I was like finally at the end of the rope with my Glock after let's see. Yeah, after 5 years of shooting, it was my Glock 34. So I shot a 17 for for 5 years. Oh yeah, okay. So I shot a 17 for 5 years, and then I shot my 34 for 5 years. So after 5 years of that 34, I was like, okay, I'm done. I got to make an upgrade here. And you and I talked for a long time about the Hawk, about the Edge, about so many different pistols. and I shot a lot of them. And I was fortunate enough to get to go to STI, do like a factory tour, and they didn't have an Edge there, but I shot all their new line of pistols, like including like the Staccato C before it came out. Shot the Staccato, no, it was the Staccato C. I shot the Staccato P before it came out. The DVC carry, the DVC 3-gun, the DVC limited, the Omni Combat Master before it came out. Yeah, kind of cool. And I think that's it. But I will say that, like you, a lot of those felt exactly the same to me. And maybe one of them had like a slightly better trigger because it was worked on by a different gunsmith or something like that. The Combat Master was the only one that felt appreciably different. Well, and then the Omni too, because it has a comp. But other than that, like they largely felt the same. So after doing that, I was kind of like, well, shoot, now I don't know what to buy. But Carl Volt just chimed in here and he says, don't forget the Vortex Nation episode with 3-gun on a budget. Heck, you were in it, Dave, and buying used generally. So I had a friend that was getting rid of a DVC 3-gun, gave me a really friendly deal on it. So that's what I ended up with. I'm confident, though, that if I had bought like an Edge or some other sort of entry-level 2011 pistol, that I would be just as happy as I am now.
Well, see, the other part is that I know me. So I know, like, I'm going to go shoot Red Oktoberfest this October, and I wanted to shoot a really nice, and I've always...
See you there, buddy.
I'll see you there. It'll be a good time. I'm excited. So I know that I wanted to have an AK, but since I work at JP, I'm pretty spoiled, and I knew that any AK that I got would not live up to my expectations. So, and I've always kind of wanted one for a while, so I purchased a Rifle Dynamics AK. It's a really nice gun, and I liked it. And I know that I've been looking after this thing. I decided on which ones I was going to get. I was looking at pictures. I was doing research. I was watching YouTube videos, and I was looking at all this stuff. And then I bought it, and I waited a long time to get it. I mean, I feel the pain, JP customers, of doing the wait time for a custom build and what it takes. That's why we work really hard so we can get them out quick to you, because I know every time I put a rifle in a box, I'm making somebody's day. And somebody at Rifle Dynamics made my day and shipped my gun out. And I got it home and excited and looked at this thing, and it's really awesome. I zeroed it, and I haven't touched it
since. What division are you shooting?
I'm going to be shooting heavy open.
Oh, nice.
So I figured I'm going to get an AK in 7.62, and I knew I'd want to run a dot because I'm used to shooting dots or some sort of optic coming from 3-gun, and I didn't want to learn iron sights, and I have pretty terrible vision as it is. I have the same vision as Riley, if that tells you anything. Where I can't.
Oh God,
I can't see my toes in the shower. It's just blobs and colors. So I didn't want to learn iron sights, and so I figured I was going to run a dot. So I'll just deal with it, and I'll go against all the guys running Galils that are going to tear me up with my 30-round AK mags. But I'll have fun. So that's the important part. But again, knowing me, like, I made all these decisions and I did all this research about how best to spend my dollars, because that's an expensive AK. And I did the buy once, cry once, and I planned for a very long time to buy this. I didn't go to Red October last year because I knew I could have bought an Arsenal and gone last year. But I knew that I wanted a Rifle Dynamics, so I didn't go last year, and I'm only going to go this year. And I used that money from shooting that match and put it towards the budget, and I was able to buy a nicer gun. And so I did all this, and I made sure everything was good, and I did a ton of research, and I figured out and did all these options, asked all these questions, researched all this mags, and then I bought it, and then I haven't touched it since. So I know that I'm going to do those things. So when I go, comes time for 3-gun and to buy that 2011, I was very concerned that I would do the same thing, and it becomes, you lust after the shiny thing. As soon as you have it, oh, that's old news. Now what's the new thing? And I and deal with that. And so being smart and realizing that tendency in me and knowing to curtail that and making sure that if I'm going to outlay this money, am I going to buy it and then forget about it? Or am I going to buy it and actually use it and it will become a new addition and a new tool in my toolbox? So that's the kind of part two that to be cautious of and to be aware of.
That is, first of all, that's really smart of you and self-aware. Side note, I will say that Red October sounds like they changed divisions. So heavy open is going to shoot against heavy open instead of shooting against light open. So I think you're going to be
sign up, but yeah, I was prepared.
So you're going to be there with your, your 30-round mags, most you'll have to contend with is someone else that has like 32 or something. I think you're going to be fine there. But so that's a really good point, and I think delaying that gratification, and especially in like the Amazon world that we live in, and waiting to purchase goes a long way. All right. And thinking about like long-term goals and places you want to be, and will this help me achieve those long-term goals? And if that answer is no, it's just shiny, like maybe chill a little bit.
So that's the other part too, is like, again, we get back to the start of the discussion. I shoot a JP CTR02, I shoot a Benelli M2, and I shoot an STI. But if I take all the purchases that people have had where they've tried things and it didn't work out, and you can sell a gun, coming from racing, you sell racing parts, they're worth 25% of what you paid for them.
Yep.
Guns, it's a lot better. It's more like 70 or 5 or 80% if you're good. But you're still losing money. And so if you to take all those purchases where you tried something, didn't work, tried something that didn't work, and just again go to the buy once and be tactical about where you spend that money, you can get a CTR2. I mean, when I bought my JP15, again, I didn't buy the CTR. I wanted a CTR, and I priced it out in the rifle builder, and I looked at that a long time. But I made the decision that no, I didn't need the CTR2, even though it would have been cool and I wanted it. The JP15 did exactly what I wanted it to do, and I was able to save a couple $100 by choosing that option. And I was able to afford a JP15 at $16 an hour salary. But it took a long time to get there, and I saved up and I brown bagged it, and I cut a lot of corners. I don't drive a nice vehicle. People see me go to matches. I drive a 2000 Infiniti that's rusted and fallen apart, and when I put my gear into it, it triples in value. I don't drive a brand new vehicle, even though I want a brand new vehicle, and having to open and not having a key fob to open my door feels annoying. Like people, hey, get something out of my car. Hold on, I got to come over there and unlock it. It's kind of give me weird looks. That sucks. But being able to go to the line and have my custom Cerakote CTR2 that is exactly the rifle that I want is worth it. And I enjoy that trade-off. So being honest with yourself, and if you're willing to make that trade-off, make sacrifices elsewhere, to do that can be beneficial.
Yes. So let me tell you about the opposite strategy. First, MN3 Gunner says, heck, I thought you guys all got free guns there, which is kind of fun.
I wish. You should talk to my bosses. I'll give you some emails after this, and we'll have some discussion. You can advocate on my behalf.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also say, like, have you ever been to, I don't know, Detroit, like a Ford factory? Those, they don't get free cars. I mean, come on, man. It's like it's a business here. But so one thing I'll say is, like, I started shooting 3-gun to sharpen my defensive skills, right? And so I came with my carry gun, I came with my AR-15, my shit hits the fan gun, and I came with like my under the bed pump shotgun, right?
And
so
and a really sweet Punisher logo, right?
That is not me, but thank you. So oh god, I'm gonna have to stop reading the chat here. Amax says, yes, everyone in the industry gets everything free 99. Oh, he's being silly. Okay, I thought that was serious.
On the DL, Maxwell, come on. What are you doing?
Yeah, jeez, don't tell everyone.
Everybody.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because, like, side note, when I plan content for YouTube, like YouTube, you have to disclose like what you paid for and what you don't pay for, right? In fact, you're supposed to do that on like Instagram, Facebook too, but no one does it. But it takes a long time. It's like paid for it. This was a gimme. Paid for it, and it would shock you. I'll just say that. Anyway, so flip side of it, like I had like basically an M4 style AR-15, like plastic grip, front A post, A2 front sight post. That's what I'm trying to say. Tried to shoot irons because I was trying to teach myself. It was a new platform to me and everything. And that's what I was using it for. And that's fine. But then once I started thinking like, okay, well, I want to shoot 3-gun as a hobby and as a sport, I didn't make that switch in my head of like, let's abandon this gun and let's get a dedicated competition gun. I tried to put lipstick on a pig, and for hoser matches, that's not a problem. But anytime you have any sort of distance or anything, it was all jacked up. So I did the all the things that I tell people not to do now. Like I had a plastic handguard. Every time you brace on a barricade, throws your optic or throws your zero off. I had a crappy mount on my my 1X optic that never held zero. I shot 55 grain at long range stuff. Like I did all the things wrong, and all that is false economy. And when I think about all the money that I wasted on trying to get junk gear to work and not just seeking out really good advice and, like we are talking about here, buying once and crying once, like that equals a CTRO2 and possibly 3 or 4 of them, because and think about it, like when you spend a couple $100 to go to like your local major, even if you can drive there and sleep in your own bed, you spend $250 going there, a bunch of ammo, all the training time and everything like that, and you go there and you underperform because your gear sucks and you didn't spend the time or the money in the right places. Now that's a wasted match. And maybe you walked away learning how dumb you are, but hopefully you did learn something there.
Or you can really sour experience that would have been, everybody else has this vision of this great match and it was a good time, where you were fighting malfunctions and you just hate the memory of that match, and it can really sour what would have been a good experience for you, and that you took this vacation and time to drive and did all these things and into a bad experience.
Yes,
paid money to do.
Yes, and I've walked away from matches like that where I've felt terrible and I had like a poor time, and the dudes in the truck with me on the way home are like, "Oh man, that was so much fun," and I'm thinking like, "Well, I didn't have fun," like I was chasing jams and I couldn't hit shit at the 200-yard target, which is funny to say nowadays, and like, but I've been there, so. Anytime I watch people make buying decisions like that, either online or in person, I cringe and I give them an internet hug, and I'm like, you'll learn. Yep. You'll learn.
That's what you can do. And the other part too, which is kind of given short shrift, unfortunately, here, that I feel bad that I haven't recommended, is that we stand on the shoulders of giants. The nice part about the internet and the information is that I don't need to figure all this stuff out. I can go on Enos or on 3Gun Talk and find all these things where all the guys are, and we have a grateful community where they like sharing this information. It's not racing where it's tight-lipped and, hey, what are you doing to get faster? Where they'll tell you something wrong. I mean, I had that happen to me in racing before, where 3-gunners, I will advocate, I will share stage plans. If you beat me, it's because you're better than me. And
dude, have we talked about this before, you and me? Like in racing, people will specifically give you wrong information, like spark plug gaps. They'll try to get you to melt your motor down before they'll help you out.
That is absolutely a thing. Now, when you wreck and you need helps and they'll help you out and stuff, there is some of that to an extent. It is nowhere near the same as the 3-gun community. And I have been given misinformation before by people who ask, and you go ask somebody else, and they kind of look at you weird, like, why would you say that? And they think you're messing with them and you're just repeating what this other dude told you. And then they correct you because they're your friend and actually are your friend and will tell you the way it's really supposed to be. So we stand on the shoulders of giants who have figured all these things out and know how to go fast, and will share that information, and we can use that to not make the same mistakes that they did and can go even faster.
Yeah, and so I'm very lucky in my job as a host of the 3-Gun Show. Everything I know is based on what 220 people have told me on the show, and all those dudes that I shot with at club matches before I started the show, and all the people that I've met at other matches, and all the come here kid, that kind of stuff that I get. Like I don't know if I say this enough, but like I did not gain any of this knowledge on my own, and I sought it out. It wasn't easy earned, but showing up, showing that you have initiative, and helping with your match administration, like helping put up walls, helping set out targets and things like that in the morning. We're talking club matches here. and helping tear down in the evening, you've demonstrated that you have value and that you're committed to this. And maybe at the end of the day, you've earned like 10 minutes of someone's time to be like, hey man, let me ask you some questions. I'm thinking about buying this. What do you think on it? Do you have any suggestions? And like,
Or can I try yours?
find the, what's that?
Or you say, can I try yours?
Yeah, there you go. Hey, always say this. I have a magazine of factory ammo. may I shoot your rifle? Like it looked like you were doing really good. I like the looks of your rifle. I think you're a good shooter. Do you mind if I shoot that? I'm in the market, that kind of thing. Yeah. And you'd be surprised. Like you'll probably get 3 other dudes that overheard you going, hey, you want to shoot mine too?
Yeah. So the other part, coming back to volunteerism, and that becomes a huge aspect of this sport. Another way that you can cut costs and give back at the same time, so you kind of becomes a mutually beneficial relationship, working a match. Work a local major, you get entry into fees, so you get the same experience. Now, again, you're not going to have the same performance that you would if you had not worked the match. But coming back to being honest and knowing that, yeah, I'm getting this for free, so I get the experience. Like I might not have shot this major had I not worked it, and you get to shoot it. You get to have the experience. Like I got to run the timer for Michulik at the last Trigun. That was pretty cool. I had never done that before, and that's an experience that I won't ever forget. And I got to do that for free, and I got to shoot the same match that everybody else did, and shoot the shoot house, and do all the fun things, and got to stand there and have the experiences that come with being an RO and seeing all the different squads and coming up and telling the stories with all the ROs. We do talk about you guys and all the goofy stuff that you saw during the day. And having that and being able to shoot the match for free and getting comped a slot. And there's a lot of matches like Rocky Mountain 3-Gun was there was a waiting list to be an RO because they treated them so well. So being able to give back to the sport, which we should all do as shooters, and make better matches that more people will want to shoot. And you can also spread that and be a little bit more tactical in your spending and save that match fee and put it elsewhere. Maybe instead of you can use that money that you saved and spend it towards buying that doodad that was $200 that you really wanted but couldn't justify previously.
Yeah, I would say that if I had a regret in my early days, it would be that I didn't RO a major match. And Rocky Mountain 3-Gun was probably the closest to me at the time. I mean, we had Colorado 3-Gun, but I shot that one and only lasted a couple of years. So Rocky Mountain 3-Gun was probably the closest to me. I probably should have tried to RO that one. The reason I didn't is I was never ready to shoot it. And I think Carl asked a question earlier about upgrading gear. And it's like, I just didn't have the right gear to shoot it. Like we were talking about my rifle setup earlier. There's no way I could have shot Rocky Mountain 3-Gun with that. That would have been a horrible, horrible, horrible experience. But even just taking the time to go and RO and watch the legit shooters go through, especially at the time when I was coming up, because it was, at that time, like 3-Gun Nation was still following matches around. And so it was like kind of a tour. That is something that I should have done. And I would encourage like all new people to go ahead and do that. Even new, mid-level, whatever, go RO a match and watch the best people out there perform, because you'll get to see how 220 people do the exact same thing on your stage. And you'll find there's probably 220 ways to do everything, and several of them are incorrect, and a lot of them are correct. But if you watch the fastest dudes and how they do things and stuff like that, it'll give you an idea of not only what to do, but like what's possible. And just knowing what's possible in the game gives you a huge leg up on just jumping in yourself and trying to figure it out.
And it might be simple things that don't normally get talked about in all the places that we've talked about, like things on Enos or on 3-Gun Talk or on the show here that you really don't make sense and you can't convey online. Like something that might happen at the match that you see all these guys do is like the fast guys. Maybe they stage their guns different. Like in the dump box, they position it so that they can access the pistol grip a lot faster. And most guys, when they stage their guns, they just dump it in the box and then kind of walk away and make sure that there's one in the chamber and then they're good to go. What if you got there, the gun was prepped and made it easier for you to pick up a lot faster, and something like that, and seeing how the fast guys do it when you go through and seeing how 200 guys do something like that and little nuances like that and how they approach the game or how they walk through, stuff that you might not see or they might not even think is worth something to share to a new shooter because it's just something everybody does and they don't realize that what they're doing is a performance advantage, and being able to pick up that as an RO will really benefit your game too.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. All right, James, what else we got?
I think that's pretty good. Kind of what I want to do is the closing statement. You got the performance triangle coming from cars, right? You got Jake has his pyramid of performance. Well, I got my triangle: good, fast, cheap. Pick two. Well, for me, you can be prepared to sacrifice fast, and then I got good and cheap. I'm fine with that if I'm willing to change it a little bit and put the time on the front end and delay that purchase and really make it to good and cheap. I can really change it and take that fast out of there and get the performance benefits that I need and shoot top level gear on the cheap.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Good, fast, cheap is something we always talked about in racing, and something we talked about in aerospace too. And we would, and by the way, working with machine shops, it's 100% a rule. It's not a rule of thumb. It's like damn near engraved on every machine in the shop. But I'll say that shooting high-end gear, it makes for a more enjoyable experience, but you can have fun with what you have.
Yeah.
And if you have something that may not be quote unquote appropriate for the game, go out to a club match and learn that game with the inappropriate gear, figure out what you can do with what you have, and then update as necessary in the manners that we were talking about there. But stretch, and if it means brown bagging it, if it means like, okay, well, I can get this just for examples, because there's one over my shoulder. I can get this M3000 now, or if I brown bag it for 6 months and maybe, I talked the wife into, a cheaper date night and, I cut back to 1 beer an evening instead of 2, I can have that Breda B12I or the Benelli M2 in 6 months. Do that. Wait 6 months, and learn more in that process. And I guess this is like a final thing here, James. One of the things that you and I have discussed that we didn't bring up here is one gun games. And so 3 guns like stinking expensive, but there's also other practical shooting opportunities out there that do help you learn to shoot competition and then get your skills up before you jump into 3 gun specifically.
Yeah, so I started in USPSA, and the other part too about starting with gear, the gun I started with was a 20-inch iron-sighted AR. I took my front sight post and I chucked it up in a drill and I hit it with a file so that it would be a finer point. It'd be easier for me to shoot at distances with it, for shooting skinny Sammies and other small poppers at distance with a rifle. And a 20-inch AR, really hard to manipulate, awful trigger. And then I shot my production Glock, and I was using Kydex mag caddies, not raced out. They're really tight to your body. My Stoger. And then the other part is for USPSA is there's a lot of things that become second nature to us in getting match experience. How to execute on a plan once that beep goes off and it erases your mind, still being able to work through that. If something goes wrong and you have a few extra misses, how to get back on plan and learning that skill, because it is a skill. And being able to do that, how the match flow works, how the safety works, how to move on a stage. And being able to figure all those things out without the complications of 2 other guns on top of that can be really beneficial. And you could gain just as much experience and learn all the same things shooting 1 gun and spending $50 to shoot USPSA as you could shooting 3 gun and shooting $100 to spend that day. So being tactical on how you spend it. And the other part for me, PCC, if you are thinking about 3 gun and you don't know yet and you don't have any of the gear, why not try and buy a GMR or another PCC for a lot less than you could spend on an AR and learn how the game works, learn how moving on a course of fire with a rifle and a long gun and becoming efficient at that. So when it comes time to shoot center fire and you have that skill translates over to a shotgun with a really long tube and manipulating a shotgun over a course of fire for 3 gun, I've already manipulated a rifle on a pistol course. I know how this works. This is pretty easy. And when I'm going to have to only hold it with 1 gun and drag it, and when I move across my body, it's awkward, so I do this. And learning all those things on the clock with one gun, when you're only spending $40 that day, can be very beneficial, and you can really be tactical about how you spend your money.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I can't tell you how many dudes I've seen turn around with their shotgun. Turn around with their shotgun held in the air like this and run straight back at the RO with the gun between them and the RO, which, if you haven't guessed yet, results in a DQ. But it's like clearly that is a newbie and they're out of their element, and there's just so much going on that they can't manage it all.
Yeah.
But if you had gone to one USPSA match before doing that, and like USPSA pistol, it doesn't even have to be PCC if you're not into that, you would know. Like, you never ever do that, and that's a no-no. And they would they explain the 180 to you. And for better or for worse, like, I think USPSA pistol matches in general, I haven't been to them all over the country, but in general have a better new shooter safety brief before a club match than most 3-gun matches do. So I think you'd get a lot of value out of that for a very small investment.
I would agree with that. I know we're spoiled because we have the Minnesota 3-gun group up here, so I would say they're on par in my area. But I would say generally across the nation that would be true where the USPSA. The other part is stage planning. If you've ever shot a lot of and you go back and shoot USPSA, you get back, and then I remember I was shooting with Nathan Payne, and he goes, "Where's the rest of the targets?" Because there's only 32 rounds on the stage. And so coming up with the stage plan for this, he goes, "Yeah, I stand here and I shoot these, and I stand here and I shoot these, and I stand here and shoot these, and that's it, right? Am I missing anything?" He said, "This feels weird." He goes, and I think of it, I try and explain, when I'm trying to explain USPSA versus 3-gun to either one of the crowds, because I'm lucky enough to mix in both, is I say USPSA is a game of inches and 3-gun is a game of feet. And being able to execute on USPSA stage plan, even though it may seem simplistic, it's like, yeah, I do here, here, and here, but you have to stand here with your right foot and here with your left foot and shoot this target, and then this target as I'm exiting. Being able to execute on the minutia in USPSA is really where you gain. But for a new shooter, all they really need to do is stand here, here, and here, and then shoot these targets. Where 3-gun, they have to stand here, shoot these targets, but don't shoot that target because that's a shotgun-only target. And then come over here, shoot this target, and then this target, and then come back here, dump your gun, pick up your shotgun, shoot this one, and then load 2, then shoot this, and this, dump your shotgun, and come, etc. Where learning all of that stuff on the clock and how to come up with a stage plan, and just coming up with a stage plan is a skill in and of itself. And then being able to execute on that on the clock is a skill too. And if you're able to learn that with a lower cost investment of just USPSA, that can be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, James, I think that's a good spot to end the show. If you don't have anything else to add, I think I'm done.
I think that's it too. I mean, I'm just trying to advocate for people that, well, on the outside, it seems like I have a ton of gear and I shoot the nicest things. And I do. I really do. I'm thankful and grateful to be able to have that position. But it became over making decisions and being smart. And I still work in the firearms industry, and we don't make a lot of money. They know that people want to work in it, so the pay isn't as good. But I get to say I worked there, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Trade-off for that is that the pay is a little bit less. Now, that doesn't mean that I still can't go do all the things that I enjoy doing and shoot top-level gear and go to top-level matches. And I do that by being smart about how I spend and being tactical. And so I don't feel that for new shooters that they should feel seeing everybody and sponsored shooters or guys like me and not knowing the backstory of how I got that gear. Don't feel intimidated. Just show up and try it. And again, be humble enough to ask for help. I would gladly, at the last stage of the last match I shot for 3-gun, I asked guys if they wanted to run my gear and run my rifle at the end of the stage. And I had 8 guys raise their hand, and they all got back through it, and it was great. And if they wanted to tag team that rifle during the match, they could absolutely do that. I borrow shotguns to people. I know there's a ton of people who want to do that. So be humble enough that if you don't know or you don't have something and it's going to prevent you from going to a match, go and ask for help.
That is a fantastic little cherry you threw on top of this podcast, James. That's awesome. I love that last little bit there. And just to reiterate, I would say, look at this as like a long game of, I don't need to buy everything right now. And if you look at like the accumulation of your life's work, like you can start a shop, like I'm in a shop right now with very little gear, or you can have the nicest gear. It's just, do you want to spend all that up front, or do you not have the means now because you're, a younger person, you're early in your career, maybe you have a young family or something like that, and look at the maximizing your enjoyment, minimizing your investment, and then building out that perfect suite of firearms and gear over the years, and look at it like as a lifelong journey.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, James, man, what a great topic. Thank you for bringing it up. Thanks for being so active in the Three Gun Show community. I always appreciate when you add comments and when you send me messages and stuff like that. If you haven't checked out James's Instagram, it's CarRacer36. It on the Instagrams, it is everything you've always wanted to see in the behind the scenes of JP and all the great rifles they put out there. And man, thanks for your time. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks to everybody in the chat. We'll see you on the range.
Thanks for having me on.